So in our page 2 we can see we are retrieving information here from the database. So how are we doing this? Now I'm going to connect to my Google Cloud database. Okay, so we can see here you can do the same. If you go to your database connection file, you will see that the credentials here are the same as this here. I've already set up a username called root, and the password, as we can see, is going to be CCT3034. CCT3034. And now I'm logged in, and I can see my database login. And so this is the database name. I then have a table called users, and in that I have 5 columns, and we're displaying 3 of those columns. So I'm going to do a query on this user table. I click this button over here, and it shows me all the records inside of it. So in our page 2, we can see here that first of all we created a query. So this is selecting the username, which is the column username, then the email, and then the password from our user table. So the next thing we look at then is we query our database with that statement, SQL statement that we've just made, and we queried on a variable called connection, which we have declared or set over here in our database file. So this here is our link or our database handler. So the MySQLi query function, we call that, and we send that query then, and it comes back with a result set. We're going to store that result set into a variable. Can be called anything, but as you can see, we're calling it result here. So now that we have our result set into our variable result, we can then do a MySQL fetch association. So it fetches a result row as an associative array. It stores that into my variable called row. So if it finds a record, so if this table was empty, it would skip this and would spit out 0 results. But if it does find a record, it will go in and then print every row. Okay, while we have found a row, we're going to get the information. So the associative array, this here is your key name. Okay, so your key name is your username, and we're going to get the corresponding row for that, which is the admin. Then we're going to get the email value, and we're going to get the row for that, which is jsnell@cct. And then finally over here we will get the password as the column, and then we're going to get the corresponding value in that particular row, and we do that for every single row. So this while MySQL fetch association, what it does is it increments every single time, so it does that itself. Okay, and once it comes to the end of it, and it sees that it has no following records, it then will break out of this while loop, and it will come out of this if statement and then close the database connection. So if we compare then the information that we have in our database and what we've just managed to take out and spit out into our website, our first username, if you notice that our first username is actually admin, but what we're displaying is CCT. We are essentially we're getting the associative array and then incrementing. So in this case here, it is getting the admin row and then moving on to the next row. So we're actually doubling up, and hence we're removing the admin from this list. Now what I'm going to show you is that I could take away this row for a second, right? So what's happening here is then it's assigning this to row. If I save this, note here that our row username is going to correspond to this value, but it won't increment here. So we're going to get a list of the same values here. So we have admin, admin, admin. So it is important for us to increment in this while loop, okay, according to the row variable. So I'm going to undo that. If I did this, save it, refresh, I now have CCT and so on, but again we're skipping the admin row. So what do we need to do? We need to check. In this case, we actually need to check to see if we have a result. So we don't need to check to see, we don't need to get the result and then increment on top of it. So actually all we need to do is to see if result is set. And so we use that, and now we start incrementing through our rows down here in the while loop. So if I save that, now we can see that it is starting with admin.